guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video is a list video. Today I'm going to be talking about my 10 favorite vampire movies. Now I talk about vampires consistently on this channel, whether it's movies, shows, plays, you name it. Vampire related, I'm going to give it a chance. So I thought I would list my 10 favorite vampire movies. They're not really in order, they're kind of just vampire movies I really like. However, number 1 and number 2 are kind of in order. The rest could be moved around on this list of 10, but they are 10 vampire movies that I have seen multiple times that I really enjoy watching. Kind of comforty vampire movies that I could put on and just be like, ah. So, let's get into the list. Number 10 is not a singular movie, but a group of movies, because I couldn't decide on which one I liked the most. It is Christopher Lee as Dracula. Now, I believe that he played Dracula in like 9 or 10 movies? He played Dracula for the first time, I believe, in 1958, and I think one of the last times he played Dracula was in like the 1970s. So he played Dracula for quite a distance of time. Now, in every single Dracula movie, he died in hilarious different ways, like falling into a frozen pond, being stabbed by a wagon wheel, having a cross fall from the top of a building and stab him. That was pretty iconic. Being burned by the sun. You know, just the many ways that Dracula has been killed. And I have seen many a Dracula movie. I love Dracula. I own multiple books. I own multiple different versions of the Dracula movie. And, I don't know, I just like the character. It's got problems, but I like it. And Christopher Lee's take on Dracula, I don't know what it is, but I love it. Don't get me wrong, there are other Draculas I really like. I love, obviously, Bela Lugosi really, started this Dracula obsession for me. And, many others who have played him on TV and in movies, I've gone, damn, you did a really good job. I really enjoyed that. But Christopher Lee is just above them all. I don't know what it is. He just screams Dracula to me. And I love him. My favorite out of the Dracula franchise with Christopher Lee is definitely Dracula AD 1972. What I like is you get to see the progression of what they allowed in these type of movies. In the first Dracula movie and the few after, when it came to him biting his victims, he would always get close and then it would fade to black. You wouldn't get to see anything, or he'd cover them with a cape or his hand, or you wouldn't see anything. But by Dracula 1972, they just showed everything. This one scene specifically, he bites this girl and you see every single moment of it. Him biting her, her reaction, him lifting his head and going, that was delicious, and then doing it again. You actually get to see the scene, and my gripe with the earlier movies is that they had to, well, they faded it out. You never got to see it. Back then they had a lot of rules about what you could and could not do in movies. But then, they saw that the Europe, they were having movies with some things that, would be considered taboo, nudity and horror and stuff like that. And so Hollywood changed up some rules, and I believe it happened in the 70s, maybe late 60s. So that's most likely why we were allowed to see the vampire bites, because of this rule being changed, but it could have been something else. But Christopher Lee Dracula, iconic. Is an icon among icons, and my favorite Dracula. Number 9 is actually surprising to me when I made this list. It's Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, which is a very odd movie to have on this list, but honestly, I really enjoyed that movie. I saw the movie first before I read the book, and the idea of Abraham Lincoln being a vampire hunter was just a very interesting concept to me, and the movie I really enjoyed. Was it perfect? No. But I had a good time watching, and I read the book after I saw the movie, like many years after. And I read the book, and that book is so good. It's, very well written, and it's a lot of journal entries from Abraham Lincoln, and there's actually a sequel to the book, which I also read, which is also amazing. The writing is just iconic. And so that movie, I just think it's an interesting idea to see, like, Abraham Lincoln was a vampire hunter. Obviously, it's all fiction, none of it's true, but it's the way that they mix history and fantasy is just, I've always been a big fan of history, so mixing like vampires into history I've always found to be really, really cool, you know, like mixing the fantasy within the reality makes it pretty awesome. Plus, you know, Dominic is in it, and he's in like 2 other things that I really enjoy, like the show Preacher. Love that show, man. Love that show. And he was in Dracula Untold. So he went from, I don't remember which one came out first. Maybe Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. I think that one might have came out first. So he was a vampire. Then he got killed by a vampire. Then he became best friends with a vampire. Really a great progression of events. Number 8 is Vampires Suck. Now, Vampires Suck is a parody movie of Twilight. It's parodying Twilight and New Moon. And it came out in 2010, when Twilight was still ginormous. So obviously they were trying to coin off the money of Twilight. And honestly, it is so good. A lot of parody movies just are really bad, or they stick to sexual humor and fart jokes and, you know, just crude humor. Not saying this movie does not have it, because it does, but it has enough of other humor to make it good. It also has some serious acting in it. Like, there are a few moments I'm like, this could just be in a movie. You know? I was like, okay. Now, obviously, it's funny. Like, there's a scene where he bites a squirrel and the squirrel attacks him. Alright, and when they do the, I know what you are, say it out loud, she calls him a Jonas brother. So, it's, you know, it's got humor that is dumb, and it's got crude humor, and it's a parody movie, so you gotta expect that. But it's one of those parody movies I actually really enjoyed. I watched Vampires Suck, and then there's another parody movie called Breaking Wind, which is named after the final book, but it's definitely all about Eclipse, so I don't know why. I mean, they called it that, obviously, but you know what I mean. Like, Breaking Dawn has very little to do with that movie. It was bad. The humor was all just sex jokes and farting and just very childish humor, which, don't get me wrong, can be good in some places, but it was just too much. And there was no serious acting, and it was all just, you gotta mix it well. You know, you gotta have some serious and some humor, otherwise it's just, you know, it was funny, but it was also like, okay, come on, can we get through this now? But Vampires Suck, I don't know what it is, but I just really love that parody movie. It's one of the only parody movies that I think I've ever really, really enjoyed. I have seen it so many times, and I think I enjoyed it so much because, one, I used to be a Twilight fan. I know, it's terrible. I was 11, so it's fine, you know. I've aged up. I've grown to like good vampire movies. But back then it was my everything, and so, you know, this movie makes fun of, obviously, back then, my favorite movie of all time. And, but they do it in a good way that made me laugh. You know, even when I was still super obsessed with Twilight, like, you know, one of those people who defends it, you know, forever, I enjoyed that movie. The acting is good, the humor is funny, it's got a lot of famous people in it. I mean, it's got the dad from Wizards of Waverly Place, so, you know, it's pretty awesome. Number 7 is Nick Knight. Now, Nick Knight was a TV movie that came out in 1989, and I did a video on this where I compare the movie to the TV show that came out in 1992. The first 2 episodes are basically using the exact same script as the movie. Like, there's a few changes, but there are some scenes that are word for word the exact same. I mean, why not, you know? And then that show got 3 seasons, ended terribly. I don't even want to talk about that finale. Still haunts me to this day. Just, oh. Nick Knight I watched after the show because I didn't even know there was a movie. First. I figured that out later. And the movie has its issues, but honestly, it's very entertaining. It's, you know, it's 80s. He drives a really cool car. It's got Rick Springfield in it as a vampire. So, pretty cool. And the special effects are handmade. You know, they're 80s special effects, and I love 80s special effects. I know a lot of people gripe about it because they're like, oh my god, it's so unrealistic. Oh my god, someone made that with their hands. You know, CGI is so much better. And it's like, yes, CGI looks better, probably, and is more realistic, depending on the movie you're making. But when it's handmade, you know that someone made that with their hands. So if someone's head explodes, you know that someone had to make a puppet where its head exploded or it melted, or there's like a process to it. And I just think it's kind of interesting to know that somebody had to make that. Obviously, much easier to do through computers, and that CGI is still made by people, but the idea of someone making like a full puppet just to have its head pop, I don't know, I enjoy that more. And Nick Knight, I think I enjoyed so much because I love Forever Knight, other than the finale. I love that show. I love vampire detective shows. I don't know, that combination of vampire detective, vampire PI, vampire plus cop, this is really cool. I every like vampire detective-y show that I have seen, I've liked in some capacity or another. So that's probably why. But it's a really good movie. Number 6 is actually a new movie. I know. This movie is Renfield. Now, Renfield came out last year, I believe, in 2023, I think. And I think I like it so much because, don't get me wrong, I love Dracula. But this movie goes off of Renfield's story rather than Dracula's. Dracula is in the movie, but he's more of a side character. You get to go through Renfield's story and what happened to Renfield and his life. And we've never really gotten that. We've had Renfield in many a Dracula movie, but he's always, a side thought. We don't really get to go into Renfield's life or, how he feels. And so this movie does that. And Nicolas Cage is Dracula, and I love that so much. I didn't know if I would like it, but I liked it. It was awesome. Now, obviously, in the end, they kill Dracula because you kind of have to. It would have been nice to see Renfield, it ends with him becoming a vampire. But I understand that, he had to kill Dracula. It was the only way he'd really find peace. So I understand. But it was good. The humor was good. The action was good. Obviously, it was a little gory for my taste. I'm not very good with horror movies or gore or stuff like that. I'm not a ginormous fan of vampires that, rip people apart. I'm the type of fan who likes, I was going to say Edward Cullen type vampires, but, brooding, Stefan Salvatore vampires. Brooding, I don't want to hurt you, I can't hurt you, no, type vampires. Not that I'm going to rip your face off vampires. Don't get me wrong, there are some occasions where I'm like, okay, let's watch that. But there are a lot of times that I just don't. I handle vampire horror movies better than I do normal horror movies because obviously it's fake. Realistic horror movies are the ones that I can't watch at all. I don't like to watch movies that make me uncomfortable. I like to watch comedies. Romantic comedies are probably my favorite, but comedies, romantic comedies, action movies, stuff that keeps you on the edge of your seat, but I don't want to be uncomfortable in my seat. I don't want to be, physically, I want to leave right now. It's not the type of feeling I like to get when I watch movies. So, horror movies, no. I don't even watch vampire horror movies unless it's, one that's suggested a lot or one I'm like, let's just put it on. But I don't watch them, which shocks everybody when I say that. They're like, you like vampires? You don't like horror movies? It's like, no. I've seen 30 Days of Night, but it was okay. I've never seen all 3. I think I've only watched the first one. I watched The Last Voyage of the Demeter, and it was okay. And I have not seen Abigail. I might watch Abigail because I know there's some people in it that I enjoy as actors, but I have not seen it. So if it's horror based, it usually takes me a while. Sometimes I'll watch it, sometimes I won't. Number 5 is Interview with the Vampire. I've talked a lot about the Anne Rice universe, and I love it. I have not read every single book in this series, and I have seen the original movie, the sequel, and the show. And I'm so excited for season 3. I saw the promo for Rockstar Lestat. Oh my god, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Especially because the trailer made it seem like it's going to be mockumentary style filming. And I love mockumentary style filming. What We Do in the Shadows is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. So if they film it mockumentary, I'm going to be so happy. I'm really excited about season 3. But the original movie I saw many moons ago. And it's got its issues, and there are a few things that I wish they would have changed or kept in the movie that they didn't keep from the book. But there's just, Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt and, it's just the vibes. Iconic. And Tom Cruise played a wonderful Lestat. He did a great job. I don't know, it just stuck with me. That's one of those movies I have seen many a time. I haven't watched it recently because I've been obsessed with the TV show. The TV show's really good. Oh my god. The TV show, I don't know, I kind of like it more than the movie. But this is a movie list, not a show list. If you'd like me to do a top 10 vampire TV show list, I could definitely do that too because I have a lot of them. Number 4 is another Dracula movie, and this is Dracula Untold from 2014. Now, Dracula Untold is on this list for the fact that I love that movie. And it is one of the only... Well, no, I saw The Last Voyage of the Demeter in theaters. But Dracula Untold I saw in theaters when it came out. My friend took me there for my birthday. And it was the greatest moment. I was like... Oh, and I was 13, so I was like, this is amazing. Oh my god. And Dracula Untold was supposed to be the start of like a franchise of movies, like the Universal Monsters thing, and I don't think it ever worked out. I believe they did make a few other movies to like go into this universe, but we never got to see Luke Evans as Dracula again, which is a disappointment. He was really good. His Dracula was moody and broody, and yes, he was a killer. He did kill. But, like, he did a really good job. And he kills Dominic. This is the movie where Dominic gets murked by Dracula in a room full of silver. Pretty spectacular, if I say so myself. And it ends in a way where it is implied that there's going to be a second movie, and obviously we never get to have the second movie, which sucks. But I saw this movie in theaters, and my 13-year-old brain was so excited about this movie. It has action, it has brooding, it has angst, which I love. My favorite vampire trope is when a vampire refuses to eat. They're like, I can't, I don't want to, I don't want to be a monster, I don't want to hurt you, and then they have to. Which is kind of, not great. But like, when they're hurt and they're like, I don't want to hurt you, you have to. I don't know why I like that trope so much, I just do. So this movie has that. And, Luke Evans as Dracula, he just gives off the Dracula vibe. The ending is not one of my favorites. Obviously, I like a lot of vampire movies end with the vampire dying. It's like a repeated thing. The vampire dies or loses or something bad happens to the vampire. I just want vampire movies where the vampire wins. The vampire wins. He gets his happy ending. He's allowed to be happy. Let him have that. Let him cook. You know what I mean? Number 3 is My Babysitter's a Vampire from 2010. Now, My Babysitter's a Vampire is on this list because it was one of the first vampire movies other than Twilight that I was super excited about. It came out on Disney Channel, which originally was made by a Canadian channel called Teletoon. I saw it on Disney Channel, and it premiered on Disney Channel, and I saw it the night it premiered. I remember waiting in my room on Disney for it to premiere on TV, and I watched all the trailers, and I was super excited about it. I was like, this is gonna be so great. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And so I sat waiting for that movie, and it was amazing. It's got a lot of 2010 humor in it. It's a little campy, a little cringy. Obviously, it's a kid's movie, so there's a lot of things that they, dampen down because it's for kids. And it was on Disney Channel, so it was edited a little bit more than the original movie. Like, I received the movie on DVD, I think 3 Christmases ago, and I watched it because I was like, oh my god, I finally got it on DVD, let's watch. And I realized that it was different than the Disney Channel one, because the Teletoon one had more scenes in it than the Disney Channel one. They, censored it a little bit. Like, the scene where Rory gets bitten by Erica, in the Disney Channel version, she bites him and they both collapse to the floor. That's it. In the Teletoon version, that happens. However, you get to see his face. She bites him and he has a look of, oh my god, on his face, and then they collapse. I don't know why they couldn't have kept that in the Disney movie. I guess it is a little oh my god. And it's for kids, so I guess. But it's like, you should have left that in. And there's a few jokes in the TV show that they also cut on Disney Channel. I have the season 1 DVD as well, and it's the Teletoon version. And there's a few changes in the episodes, like jokes that they didn't allow on Disney, and very entertaining. I want to get season 2. I don't know if season 2 exists because every time I've tried to get season 2 on DVD, it's in like Spanish, and it's like I just want it. I want to see the episodes that are different. It's like, please let me have this. My Babysitter's a Vampire was one of those movies that I was so excited about. Like, I was so fucking excited. And it's, you know, through the years, it's definitely not like high-end quality humor or high-end quality acting or special effects, but it's nostalgic for me as Twilight is. But My Babysitter's Vampire stuck more with me. I don't know why. I have seen that movie and that show so many damn times. It's not even funny. And it just brings back the childhood, and I just love it so much. I love it so much. And the line of, "Help, my babysitter's a vampire," is literally memorized in my brain. I don't think I'll ever forget him running down that road while screaming that. Highly recommend if you haven't seen it. I believe the entire movie is on YouTube for free, so if you want to watch it and you haven't seen it, do it. I believe every episode of the show is also on YouTube, so I think they're the Disney versions, though. But, you should watch. Very good. And finally, the last 2 movies, which, if you know me and you know the type of movies I like, you're going to know exactly what 2 these are. Number 2, Fright Night from 1985. I love Fright Night so much. I own every movie in the Fright Night series, every single one. The original is definitely my favorite, but the sequel that came out in 88, I believe, is actually very good. And I'm so sad they never got to make a 3rd one. But we have Fright Night Part 2, then we have a remake in 2011, and then it's Fright Night 2, New Blood, but it's a remake of the original, and then they added Elizabeth Bathory. Just cause. I did a whole video where I give my thoughts on every single Fright Night movie. You should watch that. But the original is my favorite. I'm biased. I met Chris Sarandon. I will bring this up till the day I die. I met Chris Sarandon, and it was a glorious moment, and I was so excited, and he complimented me and asked how I was doing. And I said I was doing well, thank you. And then he put his hand on my back. It was a 5-second interaction, and it was amazing. I saw Fright Night before I met Chris Sarandon, but iconic. So now when I watch a movie, I'm like, I know him. Oh my god. But Fright Night is very 80s. I love the 1980s. It's definitely my favorite fashion decade, I have noticed. And it's very 80s. The acting is awesome. Special effects are handmade. Oh, and the story is, it's pretty damn good. Now, obviously, one of my only gripes with this movie is the reincarnated lovers storyline. I think this was one of the first vampire movies that introduced that storyline. And it's a very short scene. There's a picture of her, and she's like, oh my god, who's that? And it's like, someone I knew long ago. So it's said that she's, a reincarnated version of his past love, but they don't go into details about it, so I'm not as mad about it because it's there, but it's not like a big plot point of the movie. And, but there's just something, I don't mind reincarnated lovers as much as I used to, but it's also, there's this idea like, you have to love a person for them, and if you're just falling in love with someone because they have the same face as someone you used to know, it's not the same. They're a different person. They're not the same human being that you fell in love with originally. So forcing yourself, depending on them, because they have the same face. And obviously they might love you back, but it's the idea of it. I like the idea of falling in love genuinely, not because they have a face of someone else. There are some reincarnated lover storylines that I don't hate, but there are a few that I do. And this one I don't. There's this one scene in Fright Night, the scene where Jerry breaks into Charlie's house and attacks him, throws him through a closet, pins him up against a wall. I have that entire scene memorized by heart. When I watch the movie, I can go line for line, voice it while it's happening. And it's very sad. But I can do that. I've seen that movie that many times. I think I've watched it 12 times total, which obviously it's not like 100 times, but I have seen it quite a few times. And I have watched clips from that movie and the other Fright Nights way more than 12 times. I've watched the movie from beginning to end about 12 times. But great movie. And number 1. The number 1 vampire movie on this list. Lost Boys. Are we shocked? No, we're not. Lost Boys is my favorite movie of all time. I have seen it 17 times, I believe. 17 times. I have posters, I have shirts, I have Funkos, I have cosplays, I have so many Lost Boys things, it's not even funny. And I love Lost Boys for similar reasons that I love Fright Night. It's very, even more than Fright Night, very 80s. So 80s. It's awesome. There's not a lot of bite scenes in this movie. They don't show a lot of vampire-y stuff other than fights and flying. You know, they used, like, you don't actually see them flying because, well, they didn't have the budget for that. But it's just, like, the aesthetic, the vibes, the acting, the idea of it is just so awesome. I love this movie, and I will love it till the day I die. Because I love the 1980s, and this movie is so 80s, it's not even funny. I love the soundtrack. Cry Little Sister is one of my favorite songs of all time. And Sexy Sax Man, Tim Campello, his song on the beach, I Still Believe, awesome song. They only play part of it in the movie. You should listen to the whole thing. It is a great song. Very good. Very awesome. And my mom showed me this movie. When I first began obsessing over vampires, she's like, you need to watch The Lost Boys. This came out when I was a kid, and I loved it. And I was like, okay. And I sat down, and my brain chemistry changed. And I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Ever. It has become a comfort movie for me, where if I'm feeling stressed out or anxious or anything of the sort, I put on Lost Boys. It can be background noise. It can be something I sit down, drink some hot cocoa, and watch the entirety of. It is literally the peak for me, and I love it so much. I think I would be the happiest girl alive if I could meet someone from the Lost Boys. One of them. Any of them. I would be so happy. Any of them. Now, I know a lot of them are much older now, and they don't do a lot of conventions, depending on the actor, but if I could meet any of them, I think I would die happy. It is the vibes, the acting, the story, the action, the horror is so just mended together so damn well. It's just a piece of art. Now, is it the perfect movie? No, it's not. But it is so good. There were talks of doing a remake of The Lost Boys. There was like a movie talk, and then there was talk of doing a show, and I don't think either one is happening now. And if they do decide to remake The Lost Boys, I will watch it, whether it's movie, show, you name it, I'll watch it. I'll probably judge it harshly, but I will watch it. My issue, though, is Lost Boys is, I think, so awesome because it's so 80s. So 80s that it's just awesomeness. And so if they recreate Lost Boys, but they do modern day, I just don't think it's going to do as well because it's not 80s. And I'm not saying that the only good part of Lost Boys is that it's in the 80s. It's awesome overall. But I think that really helps because it's the most 80s like vampire-y movie I've ever seen. And it is awesome. Now obviously there are other 80s vampire movies like Near Dark, Fright Night, and many, many others. Like Vamp. Vamp is 80s too. And those are good. But Lost Boys just has an aesthetic vibe that I really enjoy. And I will never stop enjoying Lost Boys ever. Ever in a million years. So if they do a remake or a reboot or whatever they decide to do, I will watch. There are 2 sequels to Lost Boys, which I don't like. I did a video on that as well. They are okay as vampire movies. But as a Lost Boys movie, they have the issue that I talked about. That if they remake The Lost Boys, it's not 80s. It doesn't have the same vibe. It's just not the same. And I don't know if you can recreate how awesome that movie was because it's not the 80s anymore. You might not be able to get the same aesthetic because that's not what it is anymore. But damn, was it awesome. Alright guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I just wanted to talk about vampires. I love it. These videos I get real invested in because it's one of my passions. My passions are all over the place. I love vampires. I love vintage. I love cosplaying. I love fantasy. I love this. I love that. I love this. But vampires are one of those hyperfixations that have never left me. I have been hyperfixed on certain shows, certain movies, certain books, certain vibes. But vampires just have not left, and I don't know why. I've been obsessed with vampires since 2009. So, you know, it's 2024 and it's still around. So I think it's going to be around till I die. So, whatever, I guess. People have their passions. Mine is just vampires. At least, you know, I give myself a chance to watch other vampire movies. I don't just watch Lost Boys or Fright Night or any of the vampire movies on this list. I watch a ton of other things. Some good, some not good. Some very not good. Some vampire movies have been so bad I couldn't even finish them. They were that bad. So, there's that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you'd like me to do a top 10 vampire TV show list, I could do that. I could do it. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed. I'll be back again Wednesday with another one. Alright, see you later.